Hi, welcome to my presentation. This is Barbara Noel. This is a presentation to international leadership teams that are considering starting a coaching program. Their problem is often having to redesign a system to support student learning in an international setting that involves navigating unique local and international identities and meeting local and international standards. The solution is a professional learning plan. Coaches operate as levers in this plan between nested learning cycles, using student learning data to drive systemic transformation. As you can see, there are some touch points where you see the C's there, and this is where coaches can work at the three layers of learning cycles, beginning with student and teacher learning and then moving up to organizational learning. The coach's role is to navigate between these three layers at working with students and teachers through assessment, curriculum, and instruction, and delivering student learning data to organizational leaders that also navigate culture, rebuild systems or redefine systems, and identify and obtain resources. As a result of the coaching program, teachers will understand that student work derives from collaboration and impacts student learning. More than anything, they'll be able to identify what students know, identify targets, design and deliver learning between actual and desired performance, and they will be able to disrupt historic inequities by reframing the dominant narrative. So they'll be able to look at equity and access so that all students can work with the program. Teachers will also feel more valued because their voice is the one that drives the dialogue, and they'll feel more supported as the coach is their thinking partner. By implementing a coaching cycle, most of the following instructional practices are implemented. Through coaching cycles is the main way that coaches work. As you can see here, there is a cycle of pre-assessment, setting goals, planning, and strategizing a unit plan or a lesson plan, implementing that plan, and then reflecting on formative data. Another way coaches work with teachers and teams is through a data dig. Scherer and Spillane will call this assessment routines. Again, there is a cycle of pre-assessing, analyzing student work compared with standards, again designing and giving an assessment, then scoring, analyzing the assessment, finding trends, and then again setting new goals and strategizing for the next learning cycle. As you can see here, leaders will also have a set of understandings and competencies and ways that they can value the change process. You can go ahead and read through that. This shows how the coaching program addresses those touch points shown before in terms of culture, resources, data, and systems. In order to make all this happen, there need to be some teams that put together a school improvement plan. And these teams are mostly comprised of a steering committee, a professional learning committee, and a teacher leadership team. The steering committee puts together a school improvement plan based on student learning data. The data helps them create a theory of or a problem of practice. They get to see what the trends are, similar to what a data dig would be. They would see what the student learning trends are, where some gaps might be, and then they will focus on hopefully one of those gaps and create what's called a theory of practice so that they can make a statement about what the plan is and what success indicators will look like. Once they have that theory of practice, it can turn into a school-wide goal, and that goal is then used by the professional learning team and the teacher leadership team to implement it throughout the year. Now, what is also found in the literature is that teachers value the fact that they are often given multiple years to be able to implement well one of those goals, at least one of the goals. Research also shows that effective school improvement plans create a shared vision for what all instruction should look like. And there are 3 strategies that are used to provide and communicate coherent and coordinated reform efforts. These strategies are increasing professional knowledge and skill, strengthening and aligning instructional guidance, and using data to guide instructional improvement efforts. So as you'll see, these teams work to do all those 3, to implement all those 3 strategies. These strategies can be used through a focus such as a school-wide goal to have curricular development and or revision, increasing subject matter knowledge, establishing a culture for professional learning, and or exploring new pedagogies. Teachers will more often buy into reform efforts if they see the following: that there is consistency, focus, support for, and a phased-in multi-year plan to implement the goal. They need to see that there is actionable data to identify instructional supports instead of just reporting student achievement numbers. They need to see that there is relevance to practice and that directly impacts student learning. They also value school-based study groups, and that is why we've put in PLCs that are run through teacher leadership groups and worked with through the teacher leaders and teachers. This is where they can look at student learning data and decide on what area of expert knowledge they need related to the school-wide goal, and then they will see how to apply it in their practice and share their application knowledge together. They need to have common planning time for this. This can happen through late start times, early release days, and things like that. Each team has a specific focus, and the coaches have a specific role as well. As you can see here, just to reiterate, steering committee develops the problem and the theory of practice. The professional learning team monitors professional learning systems, and coaches and principals work together in partnership. And the teacher leadership team facilitates the PLCs. The coach's focus in these teams is in the green boxes, as you can see. To monitor school culture, we can use what Fullen describes as the 6 questions and the core questions. Coaches also introduce collaborative norms. Often these come from what's called adaptive schools that seem to be the most effective. As you can see in the professional learning systems, coaches use a lot of different skills and roles. And for the teacher leadership team, coaches also collaborate with formal and informal leaders and can facilitate meetings. Coaches are of the school. Better said, coaches are in the school, but not of the school. So they need to stay a bit detached. They can maintain self-care strategies to make sure that they don't get depleted in their energies. They can also apply what Fullen calls the big, or Knight and Fullen call the big 6. These are questions that are applied when they go into a teacher's classroom and can also be applied to them. such as knowing what's expected, whether the materials are there that are necessary, whether things are structured in a way that both teachers and coaches can do their best every day. And to make sure that there's someone who cares, that the teacher knows and the coach knows that there's someone who cares about them and encourages their development. That said, there are barriers to implementing a good coaching program. As you can see here, often there are competing and uncoordinated initiatives. There is sometimes uncertainty about who makes the decisions and how they're made, and that can lead to ambiguity. There's also ambiguity in the coaches' roles and how to partner with principals. Sometimes those roles can be mixed. It is always important to remember that coaches are there to support, while principals are there to be more directive in terms of pushing through systemic change. Another barrier is an unarticulated curriculum and no central documentation. And coaches often find themselves having to build curriculum while they're also coaching. And it's quite easy to then take on a more of a shotgun approach and lose focus. And sometimes there are vague and or contradicting policies that teachers get confused by, and coaches tend to have to work a lot to help sense make and broker priorities in these policies with and for teachers. That being said, those barriers can be addressed through the following supports, both through the teams that were described earlier and the kinds of supports that are shown here. If there are clear reporting systems and keeping student learning at the center, then we avoid a lot of diffusion in focus. If we have an articulated and documented curriculum, then what student learning looks like is more well defined. The school goal needs to be clear, specific, and measurable, and based on data, so that there is buy-in and people know exactly, the faculty and the coaches know exactly how to meet those goals. The scheduling needs to provide sufficient time for student, teacher, and coach, and organizational reflection and collaboration. There are two parts to trust. If the culture is comprised of shared, aligned, and communicated mission, vision, policies, norms, and a school improvement plan and the school-wide goal, this will help bring about more trust. Likewise, coaching for equity and access is supremely helpful so that the reform efforts are non-trivial. They're actually move beyond the school in terms of their impact. And a lot of this has to do with recognizing and countering dominant narratives of historic inequities. And part of this has to do with transforming a deficit mindset about various types of learners and turning them into an asset-based mindset in terms of the way the faculty see those learners. The references are here for your reading pleasure, and I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. There are many more comments on the speaker's notes if you would like to have a clearer explanation of each of the slides. Thank you for attending.